evening. This is the Lake Bluff School District Board 65 Board of Education regular meeting for January 30th, 2018. And Leanne is our Secretary Pro Tem for the evening, so if you could please take the roll.
Susan Ryder.
Here.
Philip Hood.
Here.
Mark Berry.
Present.
Dan Charlotte present. Julie Gottschall absent. Richard Haig absent. John Rosen.
Present. Great, we have a quorum, so we can begin. So I would hope that everybody could stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are going to start off. I'm going to switch it around just a little bit and go right to the student recognition. Tonight we have the Lake Bluff Elementary School Robotics Club that will be presenting and highlighting some of their recent work. And I think Principal St. Clair is going to take over from that.
I'm merely going to introduce Jackie Thibodeau, our math enrichment specialist, which is a new role for her this year. And then she has started the robotics club this year too, where we have a lot of eager participants.
So I'm not going to take too long. We really want to let these engineers show you what they've been working on. So about a year ago, we started an exploratory robotics club to prepare the 4th and 5th graders in the Lake Bluff School District for potential competitions that might come down the road as they enter the middle school level. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and they're going to show you a little bit of the hard work that they've been doing every week at Robotics Club.
Hi, my name is Emily. I'm 10 years old and I'm in 4th grade. I joined Robotics Club because I want to meet new people and to teach others how to build robots too, and also so I can build faster. What I like most about robotics is building and programming the robot. My goal for robotics this session on robotics is to build a new robot and program it. I can make my robot spin in circles both ways, left and right.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Hi, my name is Dakota Solo. I'm in 4th grade. I joined Robotics Club because I like to build with Legos. The part I like most about robotics is building. This session, my goal is to build a new robot and design and use the sensors. I'm going to show you some of the movements that I programmed on my robot.
Excellent job, Coda. Thanks for sharing.
Hi, my name is James and I'm in 4th grade and I'm 9 years old. I joined robotics because I like building things, and when I joined robotics I could build more advanced stuff like Lego robots. The thing I like most about robotics is building the robots. For this session, my goal is to build a different kind of robot design and use the color sensor. I programmed my robot to hit a ball in the station.
names. All right. Now we have our 5th graders. Come on, guys.
Hi, my name is Albert, and I'm in 5th grade. We're both 10 years old, and we work as a team for some stuff. Okay, so I think I felt like the Robotics Club was a great program to continue my engineering prowess. And I also thought it was a great after-school program to have a little fun. So I think the most exciting part of robotics is the programming and the test of our robot after all the programming. I think my goals this session are to continue finishing some of the unfinished programs and completing new programs, allowing us to command new actions. So me and Scott, which is his nickname, programmed our robot to play a few songs along with navigating the landscape of a classroom.
So these two work together.
My name is Gavin Jones. I'm a 5th grader from Mr. Nose's class. I joined robotics because I want to learn more about programming and engineering. The thing I like most about Robotics Club was the fact that you have freedom of what you can make and program your robot to do. My goal for Robotics Club is I want to improve the robot by making better things and by programming it to play golf.
Please stand by. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for showing us. That's very cool.
And thank you to parents for joining your kids here. I'm sure you're really proud of them. Thanks so much.
Good job, guys. That was very interesting. Thank you. We appreciate you coming. Now, anybody who wants to state can, but it's not going to be nearly as exciting as the robotics demonstration. So if you guys want to head out, that's great, but we've got some business we're going to just continue on with, so feel free to stay or go. That's illegal.
That's just the beginning. We're having another club next year with that.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool.
All right. Thank you for coming. And now we'll catch up on our agenda and go to item 4, where we offer the opportunity for public comment. If anybody in the audience would like to address the board, please feel free to do so now. Not seeing anybody, we'll also offer the opportunity for the board to offer an additional agenda or discussion item for the evening. If anybody on the board would like to recommend an agenda item for a future agenda, please do so now, or you can always email myself or Dr. Sophie, or if anybody thinks there's something we also need to discuss tonight, please let us know. Not hearing anything, we'll move right to our reports. And I apologize, I kind of think I'm going to sneeze.
The first report is going to be PTO.
Right. And we're going to start with the PTO report and Miss Ann Hill. Thanks for coming.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Ann Hill, president of the Lake Bluff District PTO this year. I'm just going to give you sort of an overview of what we've been doing, and we'll finish up with this year. And then if you have any specific questions you want to dig deeper, please feel free to ask. So we have three kind of main goals that we're working towards this year. The first one being transparency. What do we do with the donations that people give us, right? So right before the holiday break, we sent out a holiday card to everybody listing all of the items we had purchased, programs we had run, everything we had done in the calendar year of 2017. Moving forward, we'll do it school year specific, but since it was our first time, we really wanted to kind of market ourselves and let people know what we're doing when they give us donations. So that was pretty well received, and we were happy to get that out. Secondly, we wanted to continue with family inclusive programs. It went well last year with the internet safety speaker at the middle school. So this year, just a couple weeks ago in January, we had Tim Hannig come in, who's an entertainer, a magician, and while he's entertaining the kids with his magic tricks and whatnot, he's also talking about character building and making good choices when you run into certain situations as a child and that type of thing. So he had a presentation at the elementary school for the kids, K through 5. And then that evening was the family portion where kids came back with their families. It was standing room only. It was well received, and so that was exciting to see as well. And then obviously our third goal is to continue with curricular enhancement, which is what our whole mission is. So every grade level, they all have almost already had their grade level specific assembly this year. And then we've had some all school assemblies as well that work towards curriculum and everything that everyone is learning. So we've done most of those this year already. In addition to that, we have supplied the elementary school with books. Each grade level has had books added to their library, which was a request from the elementary school. And at the middle school, we had a request to purchase an iPad to help monitor, multiple things, but the biggest being the students with diabetes when they go on field trips or off campus, that type of thing. So we've granted both of those wishes, and now we're in talks with the principals moving forward to see what else we can do the rest of this year and next year. We had our big Pumpkin Fest in the fall, which you guys were aware of. We came in at about $22,000 raised from that, so still very, very generous from our community, but down from previous years. So we'll, moving forward, look to see if there's changes we could do for that. Additionally, spring auction is something we do every other year. This is a year for that. And the feedback we've gotten is that people want to mix it up and do something different. So we are on May 19th doing our first Lake Bluff PTO golf scramble and after party in the tent. So as we get more solid details on that, we'll send out invitations and have information on that. That's what I have for you.
Thanks.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
Thanks for all you do, Ann.
I don't see the Alliance here tonight. Jay, do you have anything for us tonight? No? Okay. I'll get it. Kevin, nothing tonight, right? Okay, so President's report, however brief, I don't do these very often, but I wanted to bring attention to an award our district recently received from the Association of School Business Officials International. And it's for financial reporting, outstanding financial reporting. The Association of School Business Officials International, the ASBO, is pleased to award Lake Bluff Elementary School District 65 with a Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting, a COE. ASBO's International COE recognizes districts that have met the program's high standard for financial reporting and accountability. The school district earned the Certificate of Excellence for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending 2017. The COE's mission is to promote and recognize excellence in financial reporting, specifically through a district's comprehensive annual financial report. By participating in the COE program, school districts demonstrate their commitment to financial transparency. This board has worked very hard at being as efficient with our finances and as possible and being responsible stewards of taxpayer money. And a huge portion of that comes because of the hard work of Dr. Sophie, but Mr. Jay Kahn in particular, and how hard he's worked with district finances and to bring them in line with board wishes and desires. And I just want to tip the hat to Jay for all his hard work, because Jay's really the one who made this happen. And so I think that's great news for the district and for Jay in particular, so thank you.
Thank you,
Any
Jay.
other comments?
Thank you.
Super report.
I did think of something very quickly I wanted to bring to the board's attention. I did hear this morning that there is a school district in West Cook that closed due to the number of flu cases. And I did want to report that our nurses do keep tally of that. We have not been off the charts with any of our absences, even though it might feel that way. So please know that our nurses monitor that and report that to our principals, and we do talk about that on a regular basis. So,
Okay.
So far so good.
Okay. Yeah, knock on wood.
We still have a month left of flu season.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our discussion topics and begin with our friends from White and IHC to present to us on a recommendation for an air conditioning project. That would be Mr. Craig Sipka and Tom Karam. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Sophie, ladies and gentlemen of the board, distinguished guests, it's really good to be back.
It's good to see you.
Yes, good to see you.
I wish it were for better circumstances.
Yeah, but it's still good to be back. Innovasi is as good as ever. So tonight, what we wanted to do was present to you just sort of a synopsis, summary of the study that we've done. Really, right before Thanksgiving, we got a call from Mr. Khan about some problems or challenges you're having with your rooftop units over at the elementary school. There were some reports that were issued by the manufacturer of the units to the district that we took a look at and analyzed with our engineers. And subsequent to that, really started taking a deeper dive into options that the district could look at in terms of either fixing or replacing those units. And tonight what we'd like to do is just share with you the findings from our report, open it up to questions that you might have with regards to how to handle the situation, and then hopefully get some direction from you on next steps and how you'd like to proceed. With me today, I want to, I just get to do the fun part, the introduction, but by my side through actually, who am I kidding? He did the whole study. And that is Mr. Don Hardigan. He's one of our senior mechanical engineers, so he's gotten intimate with the situation and knows all the ins and outs. The intent with the presentation today, and then Tom Carano from IHC, and he actually helped us certainly developing all the costs, looking at constructability issues and timeframes which we need to procure any kind of replacement parts or new unit. The intent with this presentation is, it's always tricky business when you get into something this technical, right? You kind of go overboard, and we try to strike a keen balance between giving too much information and too little, just so that you can make a decision. But Don is fully prepared to answer every little nuance, and I'm not in a rush to get home tonight. So
We are.
so it's certainly up to all of you, how far you want to go. Yeah, right. No, I do. They have a great carrot cake. Anyhow, tonight's conversation topics. We just really wanted to redefine the issue for you. Talk about some long-term replacement options and the advantages, disadvantages of those options, and then just kind of talk a little bit about next steps certainly with regards to possibly implementing the same. So while Don, I'm going to turn it over to Don. He's going to start talking. I'm going to go ahead and hand out a pretty comprehensive list of options that we're going to address, and I don't want you to, this is strictly there for information purposes. We're not expecting you to read all this right now, but certainly it shows the breadth and depth of research that Don has done with regards to this issue. So, Don?
And we did narrow it down to 2 big options, and those are, looks like highlighted on your handout. So they don't need to panic about choosing between 7, we're between 2, and we have a recommendation, so.
Thank you all for having me here. Thank Craig for inviting me. So my objective here today is not to try to overwhelm anybody, but to give you guys enough solid information so you feel confident of what you have and what you don't have, what your options are. So stop me anytime if you have any questions. I don't want to talk over or under anybody, so I'm going to try to talk a little bit in engineering talk without getting too complicated. So we have a rooftop unit, 5 rooftop units at the elementary school. That is what we call evaporative cooling. And if you ever see a cooling tower of a large building with the plume coming up, that's a lot like what you have today. And the evaporative cooling is a lot of water-intensive maintenance. And I think you're finding out that there's a high maintenance piece of equipment. It's very efficient, commonly used all over the country, but primarily in places where it's dry, like a desert area. Where it's a humid area, it doesn't, it tends to have a lot more maintenance problems. And I think we all know about that. You have a question?
No, I'm just noticing that we should have known about the humidity issue before we put it in.
And it's not a bad, I want to stress it's nothing bad. It's just,
it's not common.
It's probably not the first choice I would have made.
Yeah.
But it is very efficient. But it does come at a cost with high maintenance. You have some water treatment issues you'd have to deal with, and then also you've got to do a lot of maintaining of draining and cleaning the coils. So that's what you have now. This is kind of a cartoonish type diagram of what you have. You have 3 main sections. You have the evaporative section that I just talked about. I'll call it the rooftop unit section. That includes the coil, the filters, the fan. That's what you normally would see in a conventional rooftop. And then you have what we call the ERV, that's the energy recovery ventilator. It's a very good system. It saves you a lot of energy, and it's used all over the place. The question is, how do we try to solve the evaporative unit section? So we looked at this. You have 5 rooftop units. They're all identical in technology. You have rooftop unit 1, I believe, so the admin area, and then 2 and 3, which is in like kind of a roof well area, and then you got 4 and 5. I think the immediate concern is with the 2 rooftop unit 2 and 3, which are having a chronic problem. And I believe you're not getting any cooling right now from rooftop unit 3. So the objective here is to try to figure out what options we have.
So,
yes,
so all 5 units are of this evaporative nature.
Yes.
They're all identical.
All 5 are the evaporative.
But we're currently having a problem with 2 and 3.
That's correct. Yep.
And what have we looked at 1, 4, and 5?
I'm sorry, what about?
Have we looked at 1, 4, and 5?
You have looked at it, but as far as I know, they're operating okay. And they're.
Has anyone looked at them? Are they on the verge of failing?
There's really no way to tell. 2 and 3 are the biggest. 1 and the rest of them, the reason we found out that they were failing is because they stopped working. Like,
But they stopped working suddenly, so the other one, well, I'm just trying
The
to.
other ones are a lot smaller. The 2 bigger ones are 2 and 3. They do the majority of the building.
But I mean,
The coils are corroded. The way to predict it would be to take the coils out and look for scale, and by doing that, you can cause problems. You can damage the coils, and actually, I think we took off one of them in 3 to clean it, and then we started having problems because it scaled. It wasn't supposed to, and we tried to clean the scale, and then there was a pinhole leak that was either caused by the cleaning or it was clogged with the scale, and we unclogged it or something. You're better off not touching them.
Primarily for optics reasons, because we're gonna fix this thing, and let's say 3 months later, God forbid, one of the other units goes down, and people say, gee, I thought you fixed it.
I would expect the other 3 to fail at some point, just based on the experience with the first 2 and the reason for the failure.
I noticed several of the options replace all 5.
Right.
so
There's no way to know when they're going to fail, but I would expect them to not have an extensive useful life, or not the life you would expect from them.
And keep that in mind, because as they go through the recommendations, that needs to be thought about. Okay, go ahead.
So just two additional points with regards to that. Right now, we're involved in doing a facility assessment for the district. And so taking whatever reports that the district has to date, plus having our engineers take a little bit we'll pay a little bit closer attention to some of those units. But to Mr. Khan's point, when a failure happens, then is really when you're gonna. There's no way to predict when it's gonna fail. Let's just put it that way. We know the age of them, and based on the age of when the building was built, and frankly, those 2 failed a little prematurely. It just so happens that they happen to be out of warranty, which go figure, Murphy's Law. So from those 2 standpoints, there's going to be some coverage, and then you really picked up on the fact that as part of this analysis, we looked at not just the 2 that you're having issues with right now, but we're also thinking about and kind of putting on the table over here the option for the district to go ahead and look at a more comprehensive approach to replacing all of them and what it would cost. And Tom can go through the specifics of how that would play out in terms of bidding a little bit later in the presentation.
I want to just point out, just for the camera, for the record, because we have this huge audience watching us, that neither White nor IHC were involved at
Nor
the time,
any of us.
Nor any of us at the time of when these units were installed or selected or choosing. So.
I guess one point I'd like to point out, like Craig said, you really don't know when a piece of equipment's going to fail. It's kind of like a car, right? You think you know what you're getting, how long it's going to last. But I will tell you, the way this technology works is you need a lot of airflow to bring that air through the condensing unit coil, the evaporator coil. The fact that unit 2 and 3 are in what I call like a well, you have walls on all 4 sides, and you kind of have a semi-open roof. Probably, my guess, may have accelerated the failure of those 2 units, where the other 3, they're more open, and maybe it won't fail as quickly. Just an assessment. So, for whatever that's worth, so what I'm going to show you here is the next 2 photos of the actual unit, rooftop units 2 and 3. I try to highlight the 3 main sections, and the reason why I'm doing this is to demonstrate later on with the options you have in front of you. We tried to look at something that's cost reasonable and still solve the problem. So we have the ERV section, the rooftop unit section, and the evaporator section. And that falls in line similar to what you see here. And then this is photos of rooftop unit 3. Same identical unit, same size. It's a twin unit. So this is the matrix that you have in front of you right now. And I'm not going to go through each and every detail of this, but I want to point out that this is a tool that we use called a CBA that what it does is it kind of highlights the criteria that would be important to the owner or the end user, and try to determine the priorities of those criteria. In this case, the criteria on the left would be, of course, the first cost, the total installed cost, the equipment lead time. That's kind of important here because we want to try to get a solution up before the next cooling season. Constructability. I know HC is concerned about how the constructability is, how easy it is to make these changes. Maintenance and operation efficiency. Obviously, we don't want to continue having the maintenance issues that we have today. And last, I have the noise level. And you'll see why I have that in there from one of the options. Oh, go ahead.
Really stress the noise issue.
Yeah.
Okay, we're very sensitive to that given
Our
the issues
history.
that you've had over at the school.
If anybody wants to talk to me later about this in detail, I'll be happy to go through it. So, as a group, we concluded that options 4 and 5 was probably the short list. Option 1, of course, is changing out the unit like for like. So we eliminated that, knowing that we probably don't want to have the same thing 7 or 8 years from now. There was an A and B in these options. A is just simply rooftop units 2 and 3, which is the most immediate concern, and then B is all 5 of them. And we have a cost associated with doing that work. So as I showed you before, this is what we have now. So option 4 is replacing the entire unit. That is replacing the evaporative, the rooftop unit, and the ERV all together. Instead of having an evaporative unit, we have an air-cooled system. This is very similar technology that we all have in our house. It's air cooling the refrigerant instead of water cooling the refrigerant. So it's a tried and tested technology that 90% of the air conditioning is done in this area.
And it's good for this climate.
What's that?
It's good for this climate.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
How about for the disadvantage of the well not having airflow?
Yeah. That's a good point. I think you'll have less failure with this type of technology. It's not relied as much on air drafting.
But it is air cooled, right?
It is air cooled. It's an air cooled system. However, what you're doing is you're drawing air through refrigerant coils instead of water. The other system only has one fan on it. I think you look at the pictures, it's just one fan, and it's more relied upon open area surrounding it. The requirements you see on those type of units usually have a wider range of clearance between the walls. I'm sure what we had met the specifications when it was installed and designed, but this is not as sensitive to having that wider area.
So basically, option 4
Yes.
is replacing units 2 and 3 with a similar system, but it's different because it's air rather than water.
Correct.
So it eliminates the problem that we've had with all the things that we had to
You'll no
run
longer
through.
have to have water treatment or draining down and emptying out the water and disconnecting. All that goes away.
So all that goes away, and then what Craig was saying is when they're doing the facility study, the 20-year facility study that's been part of our strategic plan, they will put in that plan replacing the other units, the other 3 units. Again, it's important to know that units 2 and 3 that are out are the bigger units. They really air condition the majority of the building. The other 3 are smaller units.
And they're the ones, and they're a type of unit that is most affected by limited airflow in that old style, so that's why they probably failed earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
And the climate. It's not.
Well, they're all affected by the climate, but those two got hammered by the space limitation.
That's right, that's right.
Just a general question, you talk about one system being more efficient than the other system, I assume you mean it costs more to run one system. Can you give me some idea with respect to the size of that building, what that difference is on an annual basis?
I don't have that information handy, and,
because that could make up the difference between the two bid prices.
yeah. So, the evaporative system you have now, ton for ton, cooling for cooling, is more efficient than air-cooled system.
We're talking about hundreds of dollars a year, thousands of dollars a year, tens of thousands of dollars a year?
Probably, I would say hundreds of dollars a year. I don't want to say it's significant. I don't want to say it's insignificant, but I don't think you're going to have a payback of,
doing
you know,
that,
3 years even.
Okay.
I think you're going to notice a little bit of increase, but it's not like it's, you know, if you would have put in if we had a brand new project that I put in the evaporative like you have now versus this, I think the difference in payback would be probably more than 10 years.
So now maybe you could go over the other option,
Yeah.
which is going to involve
Right.
something
So-
near and dear to this board's heart.
The downside, and we'll get to the pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages after the interview, but so we try to look outside the box and try to know that we have these 2 units that are inside a well, and to replace them isn't going to be easy. The constructability of that will take a little bit between lifting the old unit out and putting the new one in. So one option we came up with here is what we call the water chill. Well, we're putting in a new water-cooled chiller. What this is, we put a new chiller on grade. It'll be an air-cooled chiller, and what it does, it produces water. The water will be pumped into a new coil. So you see, you would have to keep the existing unit you have up there, but simply pull the coils out, the old refrigerant coils, and put in a water coil. Now you get to keep the fan, and you don't have to do anything with ductwork. But the downside to this is you're going to have now new water piping running through the school. This is a schematic, a sketch, as it were, of a proposed chiller that would be somewhere on the ground. I picked the
Backed up to the park. It's backed up to the golf course.
It backs up to the golf.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that it on the left, the white block there?
Yeah.
And I think there's a maintenance garage to the north, and a golf course to the west.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think.
This is information, that's the location.
Okay.
So.
So as far as noise is concerned, it's going back, it's going out to the golf course. You've got to remember, they've made a lot of progress with chillers, but it's still a chiller.
And most golfers can't hear anyway.
But here's the thing, it's not the golfers that we're worried about here.
It's the kids.
This one is about kids, yeah.
And how about cosmetically? Cosmetics, what does it look like? Is it look like a big
It would
container?
look
chiller.
It would look similar to that, but we would probably put a wall.
Just like at the middle school.
Now, the wall obviously can't be right up next to it, or else we'll have created the same problem we have on our roof.
I know what you're thinking,
Sound panels?
$100,000 later.
Baffles.
You know, the intent here was to at least provide an option that use as much of the existing equipment as possible, given the age. It's relatively new in mechanical standards or terms. However, going through, understanding the details of it, it's not something that we're recommending, but again, it's a viable option. And we, again, respect the sound issues and concerns that I'm sure are running through your heads right now, and the problems that you've had in the past. Certainly we would be very cognizant of that going through the design process. But again, it's not something that we're recommending, just given all the possibilities that are out there. And
This is number 5?
Yeah, that's
5.
Okay.
The
Number 4 is
Sure.
truly your king favorite.
it's everybody's favorite.
Well, let me ask a clarifying question. Back to number 5. The chiller, I'm assuming the chiller is sized to support 2 and 3? What are
what you see here on the list, the cost of that chiller is for all 5 units.
All 5.
Because I'm thinking if you're gonna
they're
put
gonna
something like
fit.
that in, you're gonna wanna make it big enough to eliminate all the potential problems with the other ones.
Is the chiller option less efficient than the replacement option?
It's gonna be a little less efficient because you have pumps now. You're gonna be having to pump water. The chiller unto itself is actually more efficient. When I do a design, if you're over 250 tons, I would want to put in a chilled water system as opposed to individual rooftop units. This school is a total of 250, so they're right on the edge.
Yeah.
Probably going to be a little less efficient because you have pumps.
How does the chiller compare to replacement units in terms of maintenance?
The chiller itself will probably have less maintenance, but what you're going to have now is we're going to have maintenance with a pump. Anytime you have a pump, a moving part, that's a maintenance item. And also the water that you're going to pump through the water chillers are going to have glycol in it to keep it from freezing.
Yeah.
We're going to, you'd probably put in heat tracing in the pipes. You go on, like I showed, you're going underground to keep it from freezing. But anytime you have a pump outside with water, you're going to put glycol. So glycol is a maintenance item.
And piping will run underground and then through the building itself?
Correct.
So you
Well,
also...
yeah, and I temporarily found a spot where it would come up through into that mechanical room.
Yeah.
But you would have piping into the building.
Will there be a lot of cosmetic, can you do that? I mean, will there be a lot of cosmetic changes because you're running new pipes? Cosmetic.
Yeah, so you're going to have to, so you can go underground, right, obviously by the grass, but at some point, you're going to have to come up into the second floor. So you're going to have to build something, a chase, outside exterior chase, something to get it up and into the building. That's a downside. And further, what you could do is put in a chiller now and have it sized for all 5 and just maybe do one coil replacement one year and another coil replacement the next year, and then maybe every season just extend the pipe to the other units.
Why would you even mess with 5? 4 is cheaper and it doesn't have all these problems.
Actually, for all 5 units, 5 is cheaper.
If you're looking at all 5
You're not going to want to put a chiller in just size for 2 units. So, and then maybe 5 years from now.
A bigger chiller.
So getting back to option 4, the price in here, and I know you have to go out to bid to verify that, but that includes the crane to lift the air conditioners out. It includes all the work.
All the cranes. It also includes, we gotta take in those 2 areas by rooftops, 2 and 3, we have to remove those.
The slats.
They're beams. Those all have to come out. And it includes taking those units out and then bringing in the new units.
So that's a total price to get everything done.
Yes. Yeah.
In the meantime, what maintenance should we be doing regularly on 1, 4, and 5?
I think Jay can address that because
we continue to maintain them.
Okay, so option 4, you probably have the least amount of maintenance.
No, he's
I'm asking about what should we be doing to keep 1, 4, and 5 operating as well as possible.
Jay's, they're already doing that.
We have a contract with a water treatment company that treats the water to prevent it from corroding the pipes. We replace pumps when they fail. I think 2 and 3 have had the most problems where every year we've had at least one pump fail and we've had to replace it. But in general, it's just having it serviced on a regular basis, making sure the controls are our program correctly and running as efficiently, and then the water treatment is really the biggest maintenance item.
Were we doing that for 2 and 3? Right?
Yeah, we're doing that currently. They're on a separate system. I don't know exactly how they're phased. I'm guessing 2 and 3 are on one and the others are on a different one. But there are 2 different locations in the building where there's loops of water that is treated and run through the system.
I do want to make a comment for all the many people that are watching on TV tonight that the work is going to have to be done in the summer because of the extensive work. Jay and I have already talked about renting air conditioning units for May. We did have a couple very hot, questionable days that I heard from parents this past fall, so we will be looking at renting air conditioning units for those days in May. We finish the first week in June, and then the work will be done.
Like portable units that go into the individual.
Yeah. So that's important. But without question, all of us are in agreement that our recommendation would be to go with 4 and get some bids and see where we come out money-wise on that.
And 4A, not 4B.
4A. And the rest of the units would be...
You may want just as an option to bid an alternate for 4B to just get a feel. Yeah.
Right.
There's one thing I did to be a little bit conservative on 4B is one of the biggest issues with this is you need a pretty enormous crane to get in there and get these units in and out.
I didn't think about that.
So with the other options, if you're going to do one at a time, you have a very big.
You have to get the crane every time.
For a crane. If you did all 3, the other 3, your costs are going to go down.
How much
And
is
the building is completely out of commission when this happens? A part of the building, then the building, like what's the, because if we wait for the other ones to fail, I assume they probably will at some inconvenient time. If we waited for them to fail, then we're like, don't have a place for kids and classrooms and stuff, right?
You cannot remove and install these during.
Yeah, because you can't have
You
cranes
can't have
and all that
anyone, you
stuff.
can't have
with kids
anyone in
there.
the building when you're lifting.
And you have to be done during a break.
Pardon me?
Why couldn't we do the installation during the summer break?
That's what we're
That's
talking
what we're
about.
talking
Doing it over the summer break.
I'm raising the question, John, that if the other ones fail, like if we do 4A, and then the other units failed at an inconvenient time, I'm just trying to think through how that would work.
Yeah. The units 2 and 3 do most of the main building and the classrooms. 4 and 5 are for the gym, and
Okay.
1 is for the admin wing. So
it's probably a good idea to bid it both ways.
Get it both ways and just see.
Right. Crane rental of a crane that size, what are you talking, order of magnitude, daily rate or something like that?
We're probably looking at, this is going to be more in the daily rate because of the size of it. You're talking about bringing in pieces of parts and setting it up. You're probably looking in the neighborhood of $30,000 to $40,000
just for that
crane. Yeah.
And how many days? I'm sorry. How many days does it take? Do you think to do this?
The actual removal and replacement and lifting of it for those 2 units, they would do in 1 day.
Okay.
But that needs the prep work of days before on disconnecting everything, the electrical, the piping, everything, all that being disconnected ahead of time, and then just the actual removal of the 2 and setting the other 2 in. Then you got to go ahead and connect everything up.
And so how many days for all total?
For all that, for 2 and 3 on option 4, I would guess you're looking at 3 weeks.
Kevin, we're going to need to talk about summer school.
But if you do this if they fail at separate times and we don't do this all at once, so let's say you have a $30,000 crane charge for 2
Now you're at
and 3,
almost
then you got
$100,000.
right,
If
you got
you do
120 grand
for,
yeah.
Right.
That's
Okay,
a
Phil, I think you had a couple questions.
Are the roof beams cosmetic or structural?
Cosmetic.
Is there any reason to put them back?
I would challenge you to drive by and look, because
I look at them.
I asked them too.
I don't know what effect they are.
No, we actually took one end off. It's strictly cosmetic.
How does all of this affect our lead status? And do we care about our lead status?
I did ask.
They
We have
research
a
that.
chief sustainability officer who's a fellow in the USGBC, and I asked her that specific question, and she said really it does not affect what you guys are doing. Your status anyway.
So the current, or whatever we are, lead, whatever, so by
I think you're silver right now?
So by changing out these units, it would still be that same.
Yes. Yes.
Susan had a question too.
So, recognizing that this is all competitive bid, and so you're estimating for us, I'm just curious as to why 4A is 620 and 4B is far more than twice that. Right, I understand that, but then the one over the chiller, I see, the one over the chiller is just one unit,
Yeah,
okay.
and then I threw in some extra crane days in case you were to replace these units one at a time, 3, 4, 5. Again, it's the economy of scale.
Yeah, I just would expect it to be more of an economy of scale than that, but what do I know?
Tom, would you need the same size crane for the other units, or you?
I estimated that. I mean, there may be a way we can get a little smaller one on the other ones, but then we might be looking at 20 or 25 versus 40.
So to wrap this up, I think all of our recommendation is going to be for 4A, and then do a bid for 4B and see how it comes out. The bids, according to Jay, we may be able to discuss that at the February 20th Committee of the Whole meeting to see how they came out, right?
I don't think we could get it out to bid that
Then
fast.
February 27th?
Yes.
All right, so February 27th.
2 weeks.
So we'll have more information, but we are just looking for your general okay to go ahead and move forward on this.
On the 4AB option.
4AB, I will tell you, Jay and I talked about costs. It would be our intention, based upon the dollar figures on here, to spread the cost out between this year's budget and next year's budget and not hit the fund balance.
You can't
That was our intention.
amortize this over the length of the equipment?
No, I mean, we don't pay taxes, so there's no reason to amortize.
So I just have one question out of option one. If we were to do option one, which I appreciate nobody's supporting, but have they improved the units? Would we be able to avoid the same kind of failure, or would we just expect the similar failure that we got for the units?
It's not meant for this climate. That's
I
one of the
understand.
problems.
You probably will eventually have the same type of failure, maybe not as soon.
Yeah.
Maybe
But they
sooner.
haven't improved the technology so much in the last 10 years that we have some. Okay. 4A and B it is.
Every air conditioning that fails eventually. I mean, my house this last summer. So all this stuff is just relative to each other.
So are we
I think we're
consensus
ready.
guidance to the board
We're
to go
ready.
ahead with looking at 4A and B?
Yep.
All right.
4A and B.
Any
We're
other
ready.
questions for these guys?
Can I just one point though, if I may? I may have been a little premature in committing to the 27th. Can we make sure that we get it scheduled properly and come back with a bidding schedule and a design
That sounds
document
good.
schedule that would work with not only the school district but Tom and.
Just let us know what date so that
Our
we can
intent,
get down.
we'll look at targeting that date, but I just want to go through the details first before
That
I
sounds-
commit.
We'll plan on February or March.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you. Good.
All right, don't go anywhere though, because we're talking summer projects.
I heard Brian Sandberg's at the bar.
Don't you think I didn't look, okay?
I told them you can see my own billboards now.
I know.
I saw it concert yesterday.
Now, you guys are staying for the summer projects discussion, right?
Sure.
I don't know if you talked to Jay about that. Jay, do you need them for this or not?
That's only if there's questions.
Okay, so you may want to just hang around for the summer. Okay.
All right, so item
Jay.
18, we're going to talk to Mr. Khan, who's going to take us through a summer 2018 facility project conversation.
This should be a pretty short conversation. We looked at, so you can't see the bottom up here on the screen, but our 2017 costs actually came in significantly lower than we had expected. We were probably $65,000 below initial estimates. A lot of that was the tree wall was less expensive than we thought it was going to be. Given that we can reuse some of that money towards the air conditioner, I believe that we can cover the option for A, the 2 units only, between, as Gene said, between the balance of this capital budget for this fiscal year and the capital budget for next fiscal year. If we were to do 4B, we would need to use fund balance because we don't have enough to cover that. And then, given the cost of the air conditioning repair, I would recommend postponing all of these summer projects next year, with the exception of the locker painting and the boiler pump, just given the fact that we don't have the money in our operating budget to do the casework.
Unless there's a desire to
Unless there's a strong desire to do it, in which case we could use fund balance.
So what are you saying that we would go forward with?
Right now there were 6 classrooms where we left the casework in. There's kind of the old classrooms, we did the floors, but we still have the old sinks and cabinetry in those classrooms. And the top, the existing classrooms up top, the $139,000 is to replace all the casework.
Not doing that.
We're recommending no.
And so
What are we recommending doing?
I'm recommending that we do the boiler pump at Lake Bluff Middle School, and that's basically putting in a redundant pump because we only have one, and if it should fail,
that's the $15,000 down.
We will have no, and it's cold out. We're gonna have to replace all of our pipes, so that's a safety kind of insurance thing. And then the locker painting is something that we'd like to finish the school, and for $15,000 that we can fit into the budget.
So I'm not seeing where that is. Where the locker painting?
Paint remaining hall lockers. It's electric room door. It's $15,000. It's the top one in the second group.
Oh, I see.
Remaining hall
I'm
lockers.
thinking gym lockers. Okay.
No, like the gym locker rooms were on the list, but that's something that's not urgent. And then the staff bathrooms also are not an urgent thing.
Do you foresee, last year we had some surpluses that were unforeseen to a certain extent. Do you foresee any surpluses coming in this year that might?
Yeah, and that was actually, Gene and I spoke about this earlier. That's sort of my recommendation is, I think there will be. I don't want to promise any. If you read the Treasurer's report this month, we're ahead of budget, and I would expect probably 100-something thousand at least in surplus at the end of the year.
So at some date, you can say, we'll go ahead with this because we have a surplus available to us.
So the thing with the casework is that it's a long lead time item, so we would pretty much need to decide to do it now in order to have delivery and installation in the summer. And we don't know what the surplus is now, so we can guess that we're going to have one and try to use it, and if it doesn't come in, we can use it out. We can take it out of fund balance, or you can wait and see what the surplus is, and then
put it in fund balance and use it next year.
And then use it do it next summer. So it's not to not do the casework. I think it's important to do, but I would probably postpone until we have better information.
We just have way too large of expenses this summer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jay, based on your recommendations, I'm not clear what the grand total is going to be for.
The grand total is 15 plus 15 is 30,000.
Yeah, so
plus some additional costs. And
so instead of that 393,
it's 30,000.
Dramatically different.
Well, yeah, it's 30,000 with some the funds at the bottom.
We'll vote to approve that next.
We do have one room where we may need to do some casework because we ripped it up in order to get it some piping, but it's one room versus all of the rooms. It would be probably in the neighborhood of 10 to 15,000.
And are we going to vote, like Phil was saying, are we going to vote on this? Can we have this chart revised to show what the actual number is going to be at the bottom?
Yes. I want to go on record though again and saying this doesn't mean we're not going to do it. It means we're postponing it until next year at this time, and we'll get it back on the calendar.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on that topic?
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice day. Student fees, 2018-2019. We're going to continue discussion tonight. More about kindergarten fees as well as transportation fees.
I'm going to start the conversation for this. In February, we don't have any handouts for student fees.
Okay.
So in February, the next meeting, Jay is going to be bringing you the regular student fees list with our recommendations. And as you know, there's been a couple individual items we've been working through to get to that point. I'm going to briefly talk about kindergarten, and then Jay's going to briefly talk about transportation. When we come to the February COW meeting on February 20th, the actual dollar figures will be there. We'll be talking a little bit about a fee philosophy. There'll be some discussion there, and then we'll be asking for approval at the February 27th meeting. As far as the kindergarten, we've talked about it quite often. Our recommendation will be to move to all full-day kindergarten classes at a no tuition charge. That does mean that the kindergarten will still be paying the materials book fee, but there will be no tuition. The actual tuition will be free for all of our kindy students. Kevin, how many half-day students do we have so far registered?
We have 8 that are definitely
All right, so at this particular point, and when we bring staffing to you next month, we will be adding a 0.5 teacher at the elementary school, because we're taking that half-day kindergarten teacher and making her full-time. Then the way the half-day kindergarten would work is we would follow what other school districts do, and all of the 8 students that want to go to half-day would be assigned to the different classrooms, and midway through the day they would either be picked up by their parents or take a bus home with the early childhood kids. We'll have to work through that to get our transportation efficiencies also. So that will be our recommendation. We've talked about it quite often. Does anybody have questions on the kindergarten?
We talked about, in order to do this though, you would have, what I recall the conversation sounded like a fluffy curriculum in the afternoon.
That is only if we charge tuition. By us not charging tuition, we can do academics and extensions.
Okay. And so the kids who go home midway will miss out on...
They would miss out on the extensions and the actual applications and the individual, both enrichment and extra help.
Will that put those kids behind in first grade?
Possibly.
So why do we give them
Kindergarten is not a mandated full-day class. We cannot mandate it. The state only allows us to mandate a half-day. And even then, it's not mandated. We can strongly encourage.
How much of a cost is it going to be for those 8 kids to make all the logistical arrangements and whatnot?
It's by law we have to offer transportation for
I know,
half-day.
how much is it going to cost?
I don't think there's a real marginal cost to teaching those kids.
To what?
To
No, I'm talking
teaching the
about-
half-day kids.
Didn't you say there's something like some transportation?
There won't be any
Parents will pick them up.
So when you say there are
Or
8,
we bus them, we have to bus them too, by law. Because we have to offer a half-day, so.
So we bus.
Well, we already have a midday pre-K bus, so they'll share a bus with. They'll ride an existing bus.
Okay.
when you say there are 8, are those 8 that don't want full day regardless of what it costs? Or 8 that...
Absolutely correct. We actually had 13 people pre-register for half day, and then we surveyed those people to say, if hypothetically speaking the board were to eliminate the fee, would you still want your child in
Okay,
that
that's
section?
fine.
Don't know where I'm
Thank you.
Right. Well, these are pretty, they have their reasons.
They all had their reasons, so. The second half of this equation is transportation, so I'm going to turn that over to Jay and Phil, and then remind everybody that we'll be looking at actual dollar figures for student fees at the next meeting.
And can I back up to the kindergarten for a minute? Is that the way that other comparative districts are going?
Yes.
Full day only?
Yes.
Because it's
That's
more
how-
expensive all the way around, right? We have to pay 0.5 and then we don't get the tuition in for the people, and then we have this 8 or so people who have good reasons for wanting half day, they're gonna pull their kid out, but missing something. Anyway.
We believe strongly, especially with the population that we're having in our schools, that it's best for all kids. Because the kids that have not had preschool experiences need to be in school. And even for our very high kids, the more we can get our kids in kindergarten and get their education going, it takes away that huge gap that we're seeing between school and no school.
Yeah.
So it really is best for all of our kids. And that's what most districts are doing around here, and they're working towards that now too.
Okay.
So, Jay, transportation, you and Phil.
Okay. So we spent a lot of time looking at transportation. As you know, we formed a committee and surveyed the community and had very good response rate on our survey and received some very useful data. And at the next meeting, we'll be going more into detail about the results. Also, in studying our bus routing, I found that we have a lot of excess capacity. We're reserving a space for on the bus for every student because it's free transportation. Every kid is assigned a spot on the bus. But on any given day, a large portion of the people aren't riding the bus, and some kids never ride the bus. And so that's costing us a lot of money, basically to run partially empty buses. So at the committee meeting last night, we discussed charging a modest fee so that we know who's actually using the transportation. People who rarely use the bus now won't want to pay the fee. And having this better data will allow us to right-size our fleet and save money by cutting extra routes. It should have minimal impact on congestion because people opting out most likely don't ride the bus on a regular basis anyway. We'll assign more kids to a bus and have fewer stops with more students at each stop, again, to become more efficient. And there'll be a bus registration deadline, after which existing students will only have access to the bus if a space is available. So the registration deadline will be July 1st, for example, and you need to sign up for the bus, register and select the bus option and be charged the fee. Otherwise, we're not going to route you on a bus. And then if later in the year you decide you want a bus, we will put you on one if there's space, but it can't be guaranteed. And the fee will increase. There'll be a significant late fee for signing up for a bus after that deadline. We also plan to look for other bus efficiencies in midday routes. Right now we currently have separate pre-K and kindergarten routes that we'd like to combine, and look at activity buses, having fewer activity buses and charging a fee for those activity buses that are currently free. The committee is recommending a single rider fee of up to $200 with a maximum family fee of $300. Jean and I have spoken about it, and we have some concerns that this may be too high and cause current users to opt out of transportation, which would increase congestion. So we're going to be looking at the data, and I'm going to be running the numbers and and we'll have a discussion with the committee to determine the actual amount of the fee.
Isn't that less than we used to charge?
We charge $215 before for the first rider, and I think I don't remember 100 for the next rider.
Yeah.
So it's similar to what we charged before, and we had traffic problems then. We also asked people what they'd be willing to pay in the survey, and it's not a scientific approach. The data is not statistically significant, but people also tend to answer that they're willing to pay less than they actually are willing to pay, but it's just how much risk you want to take on the fee. I mean, as I looked at it, I think the fee it will be helpful to have the revenue, but we cannot close the gap purely with revenue, and the risk is just if the fee is too high, you miss out on the revenue and you create a congestion problem. So it's getting the fee, the benefit of the fee is almost to weed out the people who aren't currently taking the bus, and you just have to decide what's the right amount. There's some sweet spot, and that's where I think the committee had one number, and Gene and I feel a little bit differently, and we'll work through that.
We're going to work through, and we're going to meet with Phil. We're just concerned about usability and where that breaking point is.
Also,
so we're going to
we
meet
don't
with
want
Phil.
to create a hardship for people who maybe don't qualify for a fee waiver, but really rely on the bus service. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and if you look at the individual survey responses, it's clear that we're not going to please everybody, and that everybody has their own needs and opinions. And Phil, if you have any other, Phil's been very involved and has done a great job.
Yeah, I'm maybe a little less concerned, but you know, I want to find time to hear what Jay and Jean are most concerned about. I would say there's several things that have been positive. One is I think the fact that we surveyed in the way that we did, and we had such a high response rate,
That's a good point.
has laid the groundwork to kind of get all these issues before the school district. So I think we framed it really well. I think there's anticipation that there will be some sort of a fee, so I think that's a step in the right direction. I do think that the committee has done a good job with Jay's help of understanding both the expense and the revenue side of this equation. I think that the group last night, getting what a fee at whatever level that's going to be out and communicating what that fee is going to be over the course of the spring with a deadline of say June 1st to really kind of reserve your spot is going to give Jay the opportunity to then look at, you know, what our interest is and then kind of develop more efficient routes. So I think that's going to be a nice impact. I think the other thing that resonated with the group is, you know, again, to stimulate people signing up early by whatever that deadline is, a significant upcharge if you wait until the fall to really motivate that. So I don't know what, you know, I want to hear what Jay and Jean's, you know, what they recommendation for a fee structure might be, but. You know, last night the $200 number came up, you know, quite a bit, and I do think that was pretty consistent with what the survey said. You know, that's where you start to see a drop off from people saying, because one of the questions was, what would you be willing to pay? And there was a drop off beyond $200 of people that might pull out. So. All that said, I think the community, again, you know, finishing up where I started, I think the way the committee's approached this and the communication thus far has kind of positioned us well.
I agree.
For whatever comes down the road here.
So we will be bringing dollar figures to you for student fees. The only other thing that will be incorporated in discussing the material fees will be technology, and we'll be talking about that at the next COW meeting too. So it kind of helps you put the whole fee structure in place when you actually get the numbers in February.
I want to add one other thing that I think people may look at it as a mistake to have gotten away from the fee altogether, but I think one thing that we will find, I believe, in the fact that we haven't had a fee is I think we did demonstrate to a lot of families that when the fee was in place, the value of busing.
Yeah.
So in some ways, the fact that it's been free for the last 5 years, we've had people that have been utilizing it that otherwise may not.
Yeah.
And so I think to go back with some sort of fee now, I think that we are going to have more utilization.
People got very used to using the buses.
I agree.
I think that's right. I have a question about registration fees. I know that we're not talking about that, but you're talking about bringing
part
it
of
all
student
up.
fees.
Okay,
We're going right there.
Oh, yeah.
To the next topic.
No, actually, that's student fees. Registration fees are student fees.
Sorry.
So, yes, I should talk about it.
If you have
Yes,
questions.
that's my question. So I recall the chart that we looked at and noting that our registration fees were pretty low in comparison to our peers. Are we also looking at that?
You will see
perhaps
comps.
I think take into account the safety issue, the cost of providing safety, safe crossings and other things that would be included in a regular registration. I'm just wondering if
I think that was
looking at the registration number.
the safety thing was talked about on transportation. And
Yeah, I
this is what they
understand.
came up with. But I would tell you, you will see comps. Jay and I are walking a fine line with knowing that many of our families really struggle to pay the current fees that we have. So we have to. That's why we're going to come in and start talking a little bit about student fee philosophy. And Jay's been doing some investigation as to comps, and I think once we kind of have it nailed down now, but we're still sorting through it. You know, I'll be thinking a lot about it in the next 2 weeks when I'm on the beach.
But when I get back, I will tell you that I do think that if we can decide on a philosophy, it will make our decisions easier in the coming years.
Right.
We're right in the middle right now. There are districts that are less than us and districts that are more among our costs.
Okay. Thanks.
Safety has been a big part of the conversation, though.
They fully vetted that one out, so.
Okay.
So are we done with kindergarten fees
Yes.
and transportation fees?
Yes.
Okay, so now we move on to 18-19 building use fees.
Right.
Yes. We're recommending no change to building use fees. We don't rent out our space very frequently. The buildings are mostly used by community members, and we encourage that by not charging them a rental fee, but simply passing along our actual costs for custodial or supervision, and recommend we continue to do that. There may be some small adjustment to the hourly rate based on pay increases, but otherwise I would recommend keeping our policy the same.
And I would also remind everybody, and Jay, this was before your time, but when I first came here, we had some extensive conversations on building use, and we've had absolutely no issues at all since that was rectified. So Jay will be bringing something very similar to what you've seen in the past at the February cow for that.
Any questions on building use fees? No, moving on. Strategic planning, mission, vision, guiding principles, Dr. Sophie.
I think we have it. As you know, we've agreed on the mission vision. We had agreed, excuse me, to reorder the guiding principles kind of in order. I hate to say in order of importance because they're all very important, but I tried to put them in an order that made sense. Susan emailed me with a couple typos this morning, which we were able to change, so I think we've got it. Any other comments, questions on this?
I think we should add 5 or 6 more.
You know what, Phil? I'll wait until you get those to me, and I'll send them all off to the board.
There's a whole back page here.
Wait, it's empty.
I think it looks great. Thank you for all your work on that.
I think it's coming together. In line with the strategic plan, we have, Kevin really put in a lot of time on board goal 1, so you can see what our action plan for board goal 1 is. I'm going to skip Mark, so Mark, if you could do NSSED right after Kevin, because it kind of flows right in.
So in front of you this evening, we have a draft of what each of the goals is going to look like. We have tried to reformat them and make them a little bit more user-friendly for everybody. So on that front page is just the overall goal. So what we are actually trying to achieve, and then all of the sub-goals. And then there'll be a little bit of information about why we're trying to accomplish that goal. So there'll be information about what we discussed in our strategic planning sessions and the importance of this work and that sort of thing right there on the front page. Then as you get into it, and all of these are pretty similar, so they won't go through each of them in depth, but if you look at goal 1A, it's that all students receive an excellent educational program that allows them to grow at their personal best. And the only difference between goal 1A and 1B is the growth and achievement. So that's the difference there. So, yes?
Kind of for the audience and for the record, can you help people understand the difference between growth and achievement?
I would be happy to. So growth is how a student moves and progresses in our program timed year over year and from benchmark to benchmark. Achievement would be whether or not they reached a specific status. So are they achieving proficiency on different benchmarks? And so you'll see here, actually in goal 1A, I'll go through that because that's focused on growth, that the indicators in that first row where it says reading growth and math growth as measured by MAP and STAR, what we're looking at here is an internal measure. And so that is MAP and STAR, and it's the percentage of students in the expected growth range. And so that's actually something that we look for in MAP and STAR anyways, and so that is something that will be very helpful. We also, because all of you have consistently asked for how we compare to other school districts with each of these measures, there's an external measure for how we will compare ourselves to other school districts in the area and across the state. So that percentage of students in the expected growth range, that's something that is being developed right now by the state of Illinois. And so the percentage of students that are in that expected growth range will be listed right there on that strategic plan. And at the bottom, this is something that will be fleshed out every year as a part of the strategic plan by the members of the administrative team and others who are a part of it. There are specific actions, so specific things that we are going to do as a team to accomplish those goals. And so if perhaps there was a year that growth was lower than expected, then there may be more actions that year, that next year, that are associated with that item. If it's a priority for the Board of Education, or there is a group that we're particularly working to challenge in the school district, then we may, associate more action with that. And so we really worked hard to make sure that all of that was there. And then at the bottom of every page is just reporting schedules and mechanisms, and it'll still be reported out on a clear dashboard and at which board meetings. On that next page there is almost the same exact thing, it's just a different measure. So the percentage of students achieving average or above average range, in the average or above average range on reading and math, math and STAR. And then the bottom part there is the percentage of students on track for college and career ratings. So instead of looking for growth, here we're looking for whether or not they met a specific benchmark. And so what we then did for each of these is that we took feedback from the strategic planning sessions and from each of you and outlined a sub-goal for each of the areas. So 1C has to do with students who are high achieving and receiving enrichment services. 1D is for students who are identified as English language learners. 1E is for students with disabilities. 1F is associated with students from low-income backgrounds, and then 1G is a goal that is related to science and science proficiency.
And the plan would be, it's very comprehensive. Kevin did an outstanding job with this. The plan would be every year when we report to the board, the numbers would be dropped into the charts, and that's what the board would get. You would know every year when it's going to be updated. And then the only thing that would change from year to year would be the actions.
How many total goals do we have again?
You will see, but there are 6. I added one on community, and I added another one on partnerships.
And they'll each probably have some parts like this as well. So it's
Not to this degree.
I would probably say that achievement is the most robust goal that we'll have.
Lots of numbers. So what struck me about this is that it aligns to the new standard you gave us to talk about.
ESSA.
ESSA, that's the one.
Yeah. The subgroup measurements.
That is exactly what we are trying to do. So that is
nicely done.
So, yes, thank you for pointing that out. Dr. Sophie and I get to go to a workshop that I'm presenting at the end of the month on that exact workshop, and so there'll be lots of people looking for our strategic plan.
I bet they will.
Yes.
Yeah. You should target. No, I'm just kidding.
Anybody have any follow-up questions?
Nice work.
Thank you.
Good job.
It's good. All right, so we're going to back up to item 8F, and a brief conversation about my work at the NSSED. And it's not something we talk about very much, but I want to do this in a couple parts. I want to give a little bit of background, not only for you guys if you don't recall, but also just for the camera. And then get into the real meat of the conversation, which is I'm going to be voting as a representative for our district on a new strategic plan at the NSSCD, which is the first revision in over 10 years. So you think, we do it a lot, they do not. But they have new leadership there, and taking the bull by the horns.
It's been about a year now, right?
He's been there a little over a year.
The new leader, yeah. So I'm going to take, it's going to be a high-level overview. I'm not going to get into the details of the strategic plan. Anybody interested, the new plan, which I'm voting on next month, is in your board packet. Anybody on and watching this can dig into that. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions or concerns. And just, as again, a little bit of background, the NSSED, we refer to it casually, that actually stands for the North Suburban Special Education District. That's our cooperative of 18 North Shore member districts that was formed in 1957. The purpose of which is for pooling resources to better provide services to help educate students with significant special needs. I would also ask Dr. Rubenstein and Dr. Sophie to chime in. If you hear me making a mistake or you think I missed a valid point, please cut me off. For perspective on where this fits in our financial world, it's really not that huge right now. This current fiscal year, we're expected to be billed about $134,000. Last year it was $255,000, and the year before it was $247,000. So in general, the trend is downward, and part of that is because we have fewer students enrolled in their programs, but part of that is random. It's who moves into the district, who moves out of the district, and we don't know the extent to which those students might have significant needs or needs of the cooperative. Could change next year. Over the years, we've typically only had a handful of kids in their full-time programs on site down in Highland Park, at North Shore Academy and North Shore Academy Elementary. 4 or 5 kids, not too many more than that. We also engage the other primary source of expense there is with professional services. They provide us sometimes with OT and occupational therapy and physical therapy services and things related to that. And again, those numbers vary year to year. I'll remind everybody that one of the biggest reasons we engage services with NSSED, as opposed to doing this all on our own, is we belong to this co-op because membership can be seen as an insurance policy that the needs of our most challenging students will always be met. Being a member of the co-op means they cannot turn away students. So if we have a particularly challenged student who moves here in the middle of the year, we always have a go-to place. Private programs can turn kids away or not have space for kids. You'll also recall our conversation that we had last week where Dr. Sophie talked about shared services and consolidation. The conversation about consolidation, and one of the big outcomes of that was we're not going to consolidate, or not likely to consolidate, but we do need to share services with other government entities and other schools. This is probably our biggest source of savings when it comes to shared services, so that's a good thing. So that's the background, just to refresh everybody's memory. Now, strategic planning at the NSSED, the details are in your board packet, so I'm not going to rehash. But it is, like I said, it's the first time they've done this in 10 years. I'm voting on it in February. They have most of it done except for some metrics and goals, which will be coming in April and June. The process is very similar to what you've seen us go through, except it was much bigger. It's been an 18-month process. It was led by, they hired an outside consultant to lead it, Dr. Linda Hansen, who you guys probably remember that name from either, I think we've used her for searches before, and she has a lot of experience. She was the super at Highland Park.
Yes, she was the superintendent.
Very well known in the industry. We had, as board members to the NSSED, the superintendents are divided into groups. There's a North Shore group and 2 other groups, a Nutrient group and what do they call it, that third group?
The other group.
The other group. And also, so we listened to a lot of stakeholder groups. So the superintendents presented to the board at NSSED telling us what they wanted to see in a new strategic plan. And then Linda Hansen and her team and Kurt Snyder, who's the super, he met with the parent association, with parents, with member district special ed directors like Kevin, superintendents, and other individuals from member district teams. They had over 880 individuals complete a survey that was sent out across all 18 member districts. 138 individuals, including myself, met for a community engagement event where we all sat in groups and brainstormed what we want the future of NSSC to look like. They then had a number of core groups come together and distill all this information into themes and bring that into more of a working plan. So it's similar to what we went through, but on a much larger basis. And to boil it all down to what's new about this plan, again, I'm not going into details, but I think there are 3 or 4 big themes. The new strategic plan at NSSCD embraces a more modern and inclusive view of all students as learners. It's moving toward working with and empowering all students, not just limited to those historically labeled as special needs. The idea being that removing labels increases the perception of students as learners. So they're kind of broadening their perspective. NSSCD will not abandon the traditional model of supporting students off-site with significant needs. That's particularly important to certain districts more than us. But rather will move toward facilitating the gradual move of more and more students back to their home district where better outcomes are more readily achieved. Another point of distinction in this new plan is they will be putting into the plan to specifically come up with a way to better embrace a partnership model where NSSCD acts, and this is my words, this is not in the plan, like a hub in a spoked wheel. You know, NSSCD is that center point of the hub, and all the member districts are on the outside of the spoked wheel, and they will connect all member districts to help facilitate collaboration, shared support, and learning. So there's tons of resources available across these 18 districts that have not been harnessed, and learning and professionals. And the NSSCD sees it as uniquely positioned to take some of that, to make some of that learning that has not otherwise been shared across districts available to the entire cooperative community. And then the other big commitment they're making in their plan, which they hadn't historically, and it's been a constant thorn in the side of the different districts over the years, is a commitment to fiscal transparency, efficiency, and responsibility. We're really going to know where our money goes. And Jay's played a big role in that, and so have all the other district business officials, letting them know clearly what we need. To sort of wrap it up, I want to just give a few examples of how this is going to affect Lake Bluff. We're going to get more for our money. We'll be getting more professional development from NSSCD. NSSCD will be providing consulting services that benefit traditional learners as well as those with differences. We'll be better able to serve kids in our own district. We will know exactly where our money is going, and we'll continue to have the insurance policy that guarantees our most challenged students will get the services they need. Try to keep it at a high level. I hope it's clear. Anybody have questions or comments, concerns?
You know what strikes me is it wasn't that long ago we were at like the point of departure, and it's just the organization
flipped.
has turned around like 180 degrees.
And the people leading the effort to leave the cooperative are now leading the effort to encourage other people to stay.
Yeah.
Because there are districts with a more traditional perspective on how to educate students with learning differences who are a little bit upset by this kind of more modern approach because they have a different philosophy about how they educate their students. And so there is a little bit of a switcheroo going on. That Kurt Schneider is working hard to make sure those guys feel that their needs will be met, and because they're not abandoning the way they've been doing everything. They just have to expand their services because more and more districts are bringing kids home, and not as much in-house work. So,
I have a question. It's more about how we work with this organization over the next several years. And Mark, you put a ton of time into this. I've gone once. I don't know if others have gone ever. Actually, my time was the new superintendent's first meeting. So whatever, a year and a half ago. Did the representatives that go to those meetings have to be sitting board members,
Yes.
or can't
Yes.
they have to be?
And there's 3 superintendents because I'm on the board this year.
There's one super from each
So
of those
we
districts.
couldn't have a board appointed person that sits.
No. only of an elected official from our town.
All right. I think that's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
I think.
I'm happy to do it through my term, but beyond
Yeah,
that.
but I mean, I think that that's
Unless you
something.
ran again.
No.
If you ran again, you'd be able to.
Oh, wow, that was pretty definitive.
No.
That was quick.
Not
I
ever.
think that was good.
No.
Happy to serve through my 8 years.
Worked on me.
Proud to serve through my 8 years.
Maybe you want to serve on MSSCD.
No, I mean, I think that I mean that's.
That will be an issue.
That will be an issue, but I think it also just speaks to Mark's leadership and all that he does. For
I agree.
this-
Yeah,
this,
well, you guys are, what do you want?
Nothing. I mean, I don't want us just to point that out, especially as we think about future board members and getting people to think about running.
That's a good
Yeah.
This is going to be something that's important to members of the public that we certainly are going to need help on the school board with keeping that
I agree.
going.
And then they have a great staff and committed people and really excellent, and they're all about achieving excellence and helping these kids. So
No, I mean, my one time that was a really impressive group of people.
I can't imagine wrangling in an 18-member board. That's for a super. That's kind of.
Yeah, but he's a pretty dynamic.
Oh,
I
yeah.
am
He's-
very excited about the changes.
Yeah.
Very, very.
All right.
Thank
so,
you. Thank you, Mark.
We'll move on and go to action items. Yay. And our personnel report for the evening includes non-licensed personnel, 2 new hires. We have Greg Neal as a teaching assistant at the middle school, replacing Dave Pookie, effective January 17th of 18. We have a Maria Ferretti, who's also going to be a teaching assistant at the elementary school, replacing Larry Sternshine, effective the 29th of this month. We also have a licensed new hire. This is an additional 1 FTE for the 18-19 school year only.
For part of this next
The remainder of it, right?
Right.
This is a Gordon Burkhart. He's a teacher at the middle school. He's a long-term sub to cover all the FMLA positions throughout the 18-19 school year, effective January 8th of 18. And finally, we have one other licensed FMLA request for Jen Stewart, is a teacher at the middle school, wants to extend the current FMLA leave of absence and return on March 6th. Any questions or comments about the personnel report for this evening?
I just want to add the long-term sub. We have a couple people doing intermittent leaves, and so that's presented quite a bit of a challenge for us in the fact that we have subs to cover for them, but then when they come back, we don't have the subs to cover for them anymore, and that's the purpose of Gordon. He's going in to fill in for the intermittent leaves that are really through the remainder of the year.
This year.
This year.
This year. Oh,
Okay.
it is
It's
18.
18-19.
No, 17.
Oh, it should say 17-18
Okay.
school year.
Right, but that won't affect the motion.
No, that doesn't affect the motion.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the personnel report as presented for January 30th, 2018.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Yes. John Rosen.
Yes.
Leanne Schroeder, yes. Philip Hood.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Barry.
Yes. The motion is approved. The second item is the consent agenda. This month's consent agenda includes the treasurer's report, the impress report, the bills report, which includes board member expenses at the III conference, the P card report, the open session meeting notes for December 12, 2017 budget hearing, the December 12, 2017 regular Board of Ed meeting, and the January 16, 2018 special ed Board of Ed meeting, and the closed session meeting minutes for December 12, 2017 regular Board of Ed meeting and the January 16, 2018 special Board of Ed meeting. Would anybody like to have any of that pulled out for further discussion? All right, so can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda for January 30, 2018 as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Leanne Charlo, yes. Philip Hood.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Barry.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Motion is approved. And that is it for discussion items. Item 10 is FOIA requests. We had 3. It's all in your board book. We keep a log. So it was interesting to point out that one of them was from the Daily North Shore. They're asking a whole series of questions about special education. I believe they're asking that of lots of schools in the area. So
Many.
Curious to see where that's going to lead. Anybody wants the details of it, that is in the board packet. Again, at the end of the meeting, we offer the opportunity for public comment. If anybody would like to address the board, please feel free to do so. That includes board members. Not hearing any, may I have a motion to adjourn at 8:47 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're closed. We're out. We're done.
Mic drop.
Mic drop.
Now